Okay, so this is the next episode of Losing Touch with Reality. It's the second book in my series, Life Beyond Silence. The first book was titled Not a Victim, a Survivor, Life Beyond Domestic Violence and Rape. That was the first book in the series. This is the second book, Losing Touch with Reality. And there's a third book that we haven't got to yet. So, in the last episode, I had gone over the fact that my online dating with a crazy man had ended, and he had gone off to jail, and that my son, once he had called me back up after he got out of jail, which I'm pretty sure wasn't a huge span, he was just trying to use me some more, and unfortunately I did let him come over. He wasn't there long, but it was long enough that my son made the decision that he wanted to go live with his dad. Which, looking back at it now, all these years later, it still upsets me that all that happened, but I wasn't being very responsible back then. And when he told me he didn't want to be there, and when my ex said that he wanted to stay with him and that he could, I was devastated, but I understood basically that I was making a lot of bad decisions, and even my children were pulling away from me. Looking back at it now, I still think my ex, Phil, should have said, no, you've got to go back. Your mom already lost one child because of me, and she will be devastated if you don't return. But I don't really have anything that I can say or do even then that could have fixed it. And I knew that. My son was 12 going on 13, so that means it was like 2003, early in 2003. And I knew I didn't have any way of fighting it. So I was devastated. And the second Phil in my life had been a crazy person, and I regret everything in my life anyway. So it's basically for sure that I regret that, because I almost got myself killed. Anyway, after my son left, my daughter, my youngest daughter, had been in trouble quite a bit, and she had decided to go stay with this woman. I tried to fight it, but ultimately, of course, it was her choice, and she went the legal route. And as I previously said, it's in court records, basically, even though it shouldn't have been ever placed in court records. But basically, they put it in court records that I date online, that I had been with numerous men. They made it sound like I was a slut or a whore, which, those are just words. And that doesn't tell you what actually went on. That just is some person who has a stick up their butt saying back in the day, they wouldn't do that now, but back in the day, they were like, online dating, that's a definite that she's a slut because she's online dating. Who does that? But nowadays, I don't know that they would ever be able to put that in there or even be judgmental like that, because a lot of people over the years have online met people. But back in the day, in the early 2000s, Match.com was big. There was a few others, but not as many as there are now. And people didn't think that you could actually just go meet somebody for coffee. They immediately assumed every person you met you were sleeping with. And I didn't even meet Steve, for instance, online. But anyway, I eventually said to myself, I've got to move from this 2-bedroom to a 1-bedroom because all of my kids are gone. My oldest, we all know from the first book what happened. My youngest had just chosen to go stay with his dad. And my middle daughter had gone off to college and was now working and on her own. So my youngest daughter leaving left me with no children. I remember my dad at one time saying, he basically asked me a question, and I was driving at the time, but he was like, I just want to ask you a question. What are you going to do when you don't have any kids left? So you're not getting any child support to help you. What are you going to do? And I was like, well, Dad, I guess. I mean, number one, I still work. But number two, I guess I will end up in one of these little flats, a studio apartment of some kind, and it'll just be me, supporting me. I would take it. And so when that day came, after my son left, I was like, I gotta get something that's just like a studio apartment. And because it's a college town, there happens to be a lot of 1-bedroom, 1-bath, little flats. And I found one, and I got it. And I moved in. I took everything I could take and moved in. And at the time that I moved in, I had already left nursing, because I left nursing not too long after 9/11, because actually during 9/11 I was home at the time nursing a sore shoulder that I had hurt from lifting patients. So not too long after that, I left nursing, went on like a hiatus, I guess. I've done that numerous times over the years. And I started doing marketing, telemarketing. And there was this company that had started up in our area, probably to give college kids a good income and a rotating kind of system where kids could come in, work, and then if they moved on because of school or whatever, other kids would pick up the slack. But here's the thing, when you're an adult and you're working at a telemarketing company, which there were other adults there, but I figured out way early that it was a total scam. Number one, everybody gets them. You get these things in the mail. I'm certain there's other ones out there now, but back in the day, people got them all the time. You're lucky. You won a trip to Bermuda. All you have to do is come to our showroom and listen to our pitch. And if you come, you'll get, you know, 2 tickets to Bermuda. Which none of that is real. But in the wording and the way that they market it, it looks real. So basically, people come from all over. They come into a place, they hear a pitch given by good looking, normal, average people, and they consider it, oh, this must be real. And so, some of them are given like a fake key, and they're told if you unlock this truck, it's yours. Well, nobody ever won the truck, and nobody ever, as far as I know, went on any trip. But the trips were given out by companies that had trips, where like you sign up for this, and if you allow them to pitch you let's say what are those called? Like a condo in Mexico, then you will come down there and stay with the pitch people, but the flight isn't included. And then if you take them up on it, then they've, you know, sold you a line, and you are stuck with a vacation a year at this resort or whatever, townhome or whatever they want to call it. But you're paying out hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Or, like I said, with a key, you come in, you listen to our pitch, and you get to try this fake looking key that they tell you is a, I don't know, a general key that's given to drivers. It doesn't look like a real key, but it really is. But you're given this silly ass key, and you go and try it on this nice looking truck, and nobody ever wins. It's just pure and simple. I think after years, I was there probably 3 or 4 years, and I think after so long they decided just for safety's sake they would give away a vehicle, but they just did that because they were afraid the Attorney General was looking into their business. And I'm sure he was. Or she was. But basically the scam of these telemarketing places is we will get you into a subscription, basically, where you will pay us every month a payment. And at the time, our scheme was, it was a wholesale club, and instead of being like Costco or Sam's Club, you paid us to look through catalogs you could have gotten on your own, or just like online figured it out. But you look through these catalogs, and supposedly you're getting wholesale prices. Well, the catalogs were given to us by companies, and people could have gone and gotten those prices anyway. But not everything was open to buyers of our club. So you're paying us, and you really can't get everything, which is the pitch. The pitch is you can get anything and everything at wholesale prices if you buy into our club. It was just a big scam. But, of course, college kids don't care. And even though I cared, I needed money just like everybody else. and you sit behind a phone, you call people, and the only thing you're doing is basically marketing to them. Oh, just come down to our store, give us your address and everything. We'll send you tickets, and we'll set up an appointment for you. Just come down. You can try a key for a truck. You can, if you don't win the truck, you'll have an opportunity to go on a trip. And meanwhile, you'll just listen to our, what most of the time ended up being like a 45-minute presentation. But the point is, it was decent pay and an honest day's work, I guess. But I worked at that for a while. I enjoyed being around the young crowd, but the owner, who I haven't talked to in years, he was pretty much a ass, pure and simple, just complete ass. But I knew his family, and I had even done some work for his mom. But I got to know a lot of people, and for, like I said, the most part, I enjoyed it. But the company switched names, like, while I was there. They were one thing, and then they switched to another thing. Again, probably because of people that had bought into the club and said, this isn't what you think it is. So just like every other fly-by-night scam, they changed their name up a little bit, and then they can say, we shut that down, we have a new thing, and then they just start a market in a different area. Anyway, and to be honest, the reason I'm knocking that kind of stuff is because back then there was so much of it, and even now with the kind of the non-live telemarketers, now there's robocalls, and it's annoying. It happens to me, and I have a lot of stuff blocked, but you get all these phone calls, and it's like from your phone area code or from like an 800 number, and you listen, and then all at once you'll hear like a robot call that says, we're trying to get a hold of you, and there's so many scams out there. Please, people, I've been working around computers for years. Please don't believe everything that's sent to you, whether it's email or text. Please don't listen to those robocalls and stay on the phone with them, because somebody will eventually get on the phone and they'll try to be, we're your Amazon and we noticed a suspicious charge, and then they try to get your Amazon number and your sign in, and a lot of times with people are just stupid and they will give it to them. I had a next door neighbor where I used to live that said, oh my goodness, have you heard about this? And I'm like, you didn't do that, did you? And she's like, yeah, because they had my number and they were going to block me. And I was like, honey, that's a scam. They tell you that something was going on with your credit card or your Amazon or whatever, or that you have a suspicious charge, just to get you to give them what they need. So now what you got to do is go change your password. You got to call the company. You got to tell them what happened so that they can take precautions for you. It was just, to me, it's just crazy. because I've been on computers for so long, and it's not that I can't get hacked, because I'm sure I can. It's just that I don't answer shit like that. I just don't. I don't pay any attention to all those emails that I didn't ask for. I don't pay any attention to mail that I didn't ask for. I don't pay any attention to texts that I didn't ask for or phone calls that I didn't ask for. Basically, if you get a hold of me, I must know you and know you really well, because I've also seen messages from people that I know that were stupid, and I was like, that ain't real. Somehow somebody's gotten connections between me and another person and used them to try to get me to answer the phone or believe an email. But all I can say about that, and I guess I just threw all this in because it wasn't in the book, but all I can say about that is you've got to be safe these days. Um, you just have to, because there's so many people out there doing crazy stuff. Anyway, getting back to my story. Sorry about that, everybody. I just started on the fact that I used to work for a telemarketing company, and the next thing you know, I'm telling you to be safe online. Um, anyway, so I moved into the one bedroom, and I was working, I was paying my bills, and I was pretty much staying at home. To be honest, I've pretty much been a homebody for years. Um, I can't even tell you when the last time I did anything worthy of anything. But I can tell you that, um, I was still talking to people on the internet. And part of that, for people like me, is, um, if you're home and you don't go anywhere, you don't go out to bars, you don't do this, you don't do that, mainly because either you have low self-confidence, which I did, or you don't have the money to do stuff like that, which I did not have the money, and you don't have anybody to go with. There's a million reasons. You know, I worked as much as I could, and I didn't have the money, so you're just you just stay at home. You're too old to go out with the young crowd, and you live in a small community, so yeah, you just don't go anywhere that you could meet anybody. And even the times I did try to go out with people my own age, it wasn't my thing. It really wasn't. But um, that's how come I stayed looking online. A lot of times you'll be like, quote unquote, online looking, like online dating looking, but you never really do anything but talk a little bit. You talk to this person, you talk to that person, you send an email here, you send an email there. And during that time in that one bedroom, I met a guy that was really nice to me and was real and did come to see me and did take me out to eat. But I also met fly by night scammers that you don't know if they were real or not. And uh, I met this one guy that he cracked me up. Me and him got along. We took pictures together. We went out together. He came over. He spent the night. It was a good relationship, basically. But as soon as he mentioned the fact, could I help him with money issues, I was like, are you kidding? Because I'm the one that needs help with money issues. Well, that didn't go anywhere. of course. But um, after that, you know, you you start realizing how old you are and how limited you really are. Like, what am I going to do? Have somebody that really, am I going to be able to find somebody that's real? And am I going to have them to my one bedroom studio apartment so that they can see just how I definitely don't have anything to offer them? You know, there's nothing. I live in a small town, and there's like really nothing to offer them. But um, this is somewhere around like 2004 now, and going on 2005, and I met a guy who was named Joe, and Joe was a really nice guy. I will only tell you that the story is enough that it deserves a chapter in my second book, mainly because Joe, when I first met him, we met online, but then he said, well, I've got to stop actually at your convenience store that's right around the corner from you. I do it a lot. And if you want to come up there and say hi and meet me. So I did. And I was in the convenience store, and I noticed him. He noticed me. We talked a minute. He was getting milk. And I guess I was looking over snack food for all I know. But he ended up saying that he, at the present time, wasn't driving. And I was like, what? And he was like, well, long story, but if you want to, like, let me go with you, then I'll explain, and then you can take me home later. I live with my mom. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, and it was the weekend, and I was bored. And he was, like I said, a nice guy. So he came over, we hung out for like the whole weekend. It was like Friday when I met him, and or it could have been Saturday morning when I met him, and it was Sunday afternoon when I took him back to his mom's. But he turned out that he was pretty honest with me. He said that he had gotten a DUI, and he had his license taken away, and he had to go to these DUI classes in order to get them back, and that he was staying at his mom's, and he worked at a local, I think at that time he was working at a like little motor place where they make like lawnmower motors, things like that. And he said, he had done other things, and he told me like tons of stuff about his life. How his dad had had a heart attack and died in the yard, and his mom was old and alone, and so he moved out there, and he'd been divorced for a while, and he just told me all kinds of stuff. And I told him all kinds of stuff about my life. And to be honest, I think he really did love me, and I think I really loved him. And we got together at the right time in the right place, because he started staying with me. I drove him back and forth to his classes. He worked. I dropped him off at work, picked him up. I was working that I could work my schedule around. And little did I know that literally I was going to lose my position, and there I was going to not know what in the world I was going to do. And I remember I lost my position and just cried my eyes out. And the only reason I lost my position is because I opened my mouth too much. And I don't have any answer for that other than I had been there quite a while, and they knew that I had issues with doing something that was so incredibly wrong, taking people's money and not delivering on that. So for whatever reason, they had done it with other people, but for whatever reason, they just tell you your time's up. So actually, Joe said, I'll pay your bills. Just tell me how much they are, and I'll pay them so that we can continue to stay here. And I told him, I'm going to be going back to nursing because I can't live on nothing. And so I put the word out that I was interested in going back to nursing, that I would take a temp job. And I think I took like a couple before I got a position in 2006 offered to me for a doctor's office. And I was like, yeah, I guess I could do that. And, they just, a temp position, they just tell you where to be, what time, what to wear. And you go there, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it's a temp position, so they can let you go at any time. So, and this was 2006. Like, I want to say April, May. And I went to this doctor's office that I had never been to before. It was the ear, nose, and throat doctor. And I had been hired as a nurse. And, they showed me the ropes. And within like 2 days, they knew that I could do it with my eyes closed. And I was very computer literate, so they didn't have to show me much about that. And the office manager, she was, at first, she seemed like a person that I would really like to be around, but she had a lot of moodiness and issues, and she blamed it on her hormones, which hormonal issues can cause moodiness, rage, other type issues. And at first I just didn't really see it, and I was doing my work, and I wasn't looking to take her job or anything. I was just looking to do my work, leave every day, and make a decent wage. And the doctor had said, if it works out, which it looks like it's going to, we'll just keep you if you want to stay here. And I was like, okay, And at first, like I said, I thought that me and her were getting along just fine. And she had said, do you play pogo? And I was like, no, but I know one of my kids does. And she's like, well, you should, because I play pogo, and I sit here all day and goof off because we don't have many patients, and you can do the same thing. And I don't know, that's just not my thing. Um, so I was going through records. I was cleaning up the office. I was doing all kinds of little odd and end things. And the doctor had taken notice. I was doing a lot of stuff. And he had told me, it looks like you're working out fine. He goes, I'm really happy to see you so eager to learn things. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I really wasn't thinking of it as being anything more than just a good job. And I wasn't making that much. To be honest, I think I was making, well, when I was on the temp service, I was making like 20 an hour. But when he decided to buy me out so that I could stay there, um, I don't know, I was thinking my wage was about 13, 14 an hour. Maybe like 14 an hour. I don't remember, to be honest. But it was good going wage for an office position. I mean, yeah, I was doing nursing, but it was just mainly an office position. And for that small of a town, it was decent. I wasn't complaining. Um, but I took the job. I started working it, and I remember somewhere around like, let's say August or September. And here's another thing: the office manager had asked me and Joe to come to her place out in the country. That her husband was a fisherman and a land between the lakes guide, and that we could come out there and see deer and hummingbirds. And they had like a little apartment kind of like thing that they allowed sportsmen to stay at and fish and hunt and stuff. And we were welcome to stay the night. And we did, and we enjoyed it. It was fun. But as I said, I thought we were pretty much friends. And then she started to see that maybe the doctor liked me better than her. But that's not what I saw. I just saw her being very moody and aggressive. And the doctor and her would often argue, but it wasn't because of me in any way. Did not want to be an office manager. I wanted to just do nursing and learn about radiology and learn several of the other things. Had no interest in being an office manager. That's not where my training had lied. But anyway, I think I'm going to leave it here for right now. I get long-winded. I've done this in the past where I just keep talking, and I shouldn't. I realize listening to my voice and my episodes are probably not the best quality,